There's a lot of different ways to look at the human condition, the human experience. A lot of them are valid, many of them are valid. This is one particular way, as I've been explaining over the days we've been here together. I'm looking at the human condition through one particular lens. It's a lens of enlightenment in an evolutionary context. So there's a particular vantage point, orientation, perspective, way of seeing all this that I'm sharing with you. It's not the only way to see the human condition, and there are many other ways, as I said, that are equally valid. It's just that in the context of this particular teaching, this particular orientation, which has a particular goal, which is evolutionary enlightenment, is a particular goal. In order to achieve that particular goal, because we want to achieve a particular goal, then therefore it's essential, if we want to achieve that particular goal, that we are able to embrace this particular way of seeing and looking at the human condition, most importantly and most especially our own. That if you realize the evolution of consciousness and culture is a very important matter, and if you realize that for consciousness and culture to evolve, you actually need to participate in that process. In order to participate in that process, you need to become significantly more enlightened and more evolved than you are now, significantly more evolved and enlightened and liberated than you are right now. We're talking about a significant leap, not a minor shift, not a minor development, but major quantum leap of shift and transformation. You get the difference, by the way? Because anybody can get a little better at anything. You know what I mean? Anybody can get a little better at anything. It doesn't mean much has happened, just a little better. Before you were a little worse, now you're a little better. It's like, that doesn't really show up. But we're talking about a quantum leap in transformation from some kind of, and we'll discuss this a little bit more later on, some kind of horizontal self-improvement versus a vertical leap into a radically different orientation. So you actually become then a radically different manifestation, expression of you. You're not just a little different, you're really different. You get it? So if you realize that, which we'll get to, because this is kind of how the whole teaching is set up. If you realize that the evolution of consciousness and culture from a perspective of non-duality, which we'll speak more about, is entirely dependent upon your own transformation. This teaching gives me infinite ways to corner the individual. But when you realize and recognize, as we will talk about, and once again we haven't talked much about this yet, from a perspective of evolutionary non-duality, that the evolution of the interior of the cosmos depends upon you. In other words, when you realize this is really important, and that you as an individual have a part to play, and that your own significant evolutionary development, transformation, evolution is pivotal in the process, that the process can't evolve and change and develop unless you do. If you insist on being a stuck person who will not change, then you are holding up the whole show, right? That from a certain point of view, it's only one way to look at it, but from a certain point of view, a certain vantage point, you're holding up the entire show by your conscious or unconscious, irrational refusal to change and to evolve. If you realize in that, we realize, well, it's pretty important that I get moving, because I certainly don't want to die and be accused by whoever and whatever committee I'm going to have to face. You, Andrew Cohen, because of your conscious and unconscious refusal to evolve and to walk your talk, held up the whole show. And look at the karmic consequences of your refusal. I just don't want to deal with that. So if, for whatever reason, we realize that all the things we've been speaking about here are really important, then the truth is the only way this shift can be made is by you, the individual, coming to a similar point in your own evolution and development like I did, which is you have to realize that it's in your hands, that it's in your hands, And the big key here is that you're not a victim. And that's the big challenge, you have that the victim orientation. If you're a victim, it means you're wounded. If you're a victim, it means you're wounded. And a wounded person isn't like everyone else because they have unique problems that give them a special form, which means they don't have to live up to these high expectations. Like if you go to the army or if you go to the military, and you're missing an arm or a leg, or if there's something terribly wrong with you, you get the dispensation. You don't have to go to join the military because there's something fundamental wrong with you that makes you incapable of being a soldier. Right? You have a unique issue. You can't expect a guy to go out in the battlefield. He doesn't have an arm. He can't hold a gun with just, So then we understand and we say, well, of course, we can't expect you to go out on the battlefield because you have a special problem. Right? So this is the same way how it works, at least psychologically how it works is for most people, when they're challenged, the way it works is that if you see yourself as having a special problem, and most of us do, secretly, we have some unique particular problem that nobody really can appreciate how severe or special it is. If you have a special problem that you are, if you believe that you have a special problem, then then it will never occur to you. Then it will never occur to you that you need to be ready now. It's just very simple. It'll never occur to you, because your fundamental orientation to life, when you're challenged, is that you're not ready because you have a special problem. You follow? I'm not ready because I have a special problem. And what you're going to be, and in those moments when you're challenged, what you're going to be seeking for from other people who you trust is sympathy. You're going to want other people to sympathize with this position you've taken in relationship to your own history, that you have a special problem. And you want the others out there to give you that dispensation, the special dispensation, where they realize, I understand you couldn't possibly be ready to do this because you have a special problem, and I recognize you have a special problem, so that's totally okay. And then you get to stand off to the side, and not feel quite as bad about it. You get the idea? It's pretty yucky stuff. You know the word yuck? I don't know the translation of yuck in all the many different European languages that people hear, but it's not nice. So, and this is pretty serious stuff. What I'm saying here is very serious. It applies to most people in some shape or degree across the board. Some people have a strong dose of this, and some people have it very mild, and a lot of people in between. But this does almost universally apply to most people at a certain stage of development, especially for a lot of the people that are interested in these kinds of their cultural stage of development, where they're interested in these kinds of teachings. They usually suffer consciously and unconsciously from these kind of from taking these kinds of positions in relationship to their own history and to the future.